are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my series review, New Lands by Charles Fort. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show and friends of the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. While you're there, please check out the links in every episode description, especially the link there for Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays whenever she can make it. And a few things I like to note here when I start these review shows of this material. There will be things that Fort says that you and or I will not agree with or will not like. Also, there will be things he talks about as being mysterious that may not be so mysterious now, almost 100 years after these books were written and came out. And the last, of course, is I apologize in advance for mispronouncing any names of people and or places. Words are hard, and especially when they are not all in English. So having said all that, let me get back to the material here. Fort's been going over sort of a history of astronomy from his point of view as far as, I guess you could say, what has worked and what hasn't worked in this time. So hopefully we'll be getting out of that section soon because, yeah. Anyway, this says, we have had some experience with the triumphs of astronomers. We have some suspicions as to their greatly advertised accuracy. We shall find out for ourselves whether the morning of November 14th, 1867 was clear enough in England or not. We suspect that it was a charming morning in England. Monthly notices, Royal Astronomical Society, I should say, I think 28-32. Report by E.J. Lowe, Highfield House, night of November 13th to 14th, 1867. Quotation marks here. Clear at 1:10 a.m. High, thin cumuli, I guess I mean clouds, at 2 a.m., but sky not covered until 3:10 a.m., and the moon's place visible until 3:55 a.m. Sky not overcast until 5:50 a.m. Close quotation marks. The determination of the orbital period of 33 years and a quarter, but with appearances of a period of 33 years, was arrived at by Professor Newton by searching old records, finding that in an intersection period of 33 years, there had been extraordinary meteoric displays from the year 902 AD to the year 1833 AD. He reminds me of an investigator who searched old records for appearances of Halley's Comet and found something that he identified as Halley's Comet exactly on time every 75 years back to times of Roman Empire. See the Edinburgh, I'm going to say it wrong, I apologize, review, volume 66. It seems that he did not know that orthodoxy does not attribute exactly a 75-year period to Halley's Comet. He got what he went looking for, anyway. I have no disposition for us to enjoy ourselves at Professor Newton's expense, because surely enough, his method, if regarded as only experimental or tentative, is legitimate enough, though one does suspect him of very loose behavior in his picking and choosing. But Dr. Adams announced that, upon mathematical grounds, he had arrived at the same conclusion. The test. The next return of the Leonids was predicted for November 1899. Memoirs of the British Astronomical Association, 9-6. Quotation marks here. No meteoric event, I have a hard time with that word, ever before aroused such widespread interest or so grievously disappointed anticipation. Close quotation marks. There were no Leonids in November 1899. It was explained they would be seen next year. There were no Leonids in November 1900. It was explained they would be seen next year. No Leonids. Okay, so I do kind of like this. This is kind of interesting. Vaunt and inflation and parade of the symbols of the infinitesimal calculus. The pomp of vectors and the hush that surrounds quaternions. Okay. But when an axis of coordinates loses its rectitude in the service of a questionable selection, disciplined symbols become a rabble. The Most High of mathematics and one of his proposed prophets, if I can say the word, points to the sky. Nowhere near where he points, something is found. He points to a date. Nothing happens. Professor Serviss, that's Serviss, in Astronomy in a Nutshell, explains. He explains that the Leonids did not appear when they should have appeared, because Jupiter and Saturn had altered their orbits. Back in the times of the Crusades, and nothing was disturbing the Leonids. And if you're stronger for dates than I am, think of some more dates, and nothing was altering the orbit of the Leonids. Wow. Discovery of America and the Spanish Armada in 1588, which by some freak I always remember, and no effects by Jupiter and Saturn. French Revolution. That's just freaking out on me. Okay. French Revolution and on to the year 1866, and still nothing the matter with the Leonids. But once removed from discovery and identification, and that's the end of their period, diverted by Jupiter and Saturn. Old things that had been up in the sky, at least as long as they had been. If we're going to accept the calculi at all, the calculus of probabilities must have a hearing. My own opinion, based upon reading many accounts of November meteors, is that decidedly the display of 1833 did not repeat in 1866. That a false priest sinned, and that an equally false high priest gave him sanction. The tragedy goes comically on. My mouse pad is slipping off the table. All kinds of technical difficulties here. There we go. I feel that to all good neo astronomers, I can recommend the following serenity from an astronomer who was unperturbed by what happened to his science in November 1899 and some more Novembers. Bryant, A History of Astronomy, page 252. That the meteoric display of 1899 have failed to appear, in quotation marks here, as had been predicted by Dr. Downing and Dr. Johnston Stoney. One, in quotation marks, one starts to enjoy this disguisement, thinking of virtually all the astronomers in the world who had predicted the return of the Leonids, and the finding by Bryant of two who had not, and is recording only the opinion of these two, coloring so as to look like another triumph. But we may thank our sorely stimulated suspiciousness for still richer enjoyment. That even these two said no such saving thing. Nature, November 9th, 1899. Dr. Downing and Dr. Stoney, instead of predicting failure of the Leonids to appear, advise watch for them several hours later than had been calculated. I conceive of the astronomer's fictitious paradise as malarchitectural, with corrupted equations and paved with rotten symbols, seeming pure, white fountains of formal vanities. Boasts are gushing from decomposed triumphs. We shall find their furnishings shabby, with tarnished comets. We turn expectantly to the subject of comets, or we turn cynically to the subject. We turn maliciously to the subject of comets. Nevertheless, threading the insecurities of our various feelings is a motif that is the steady essence of neo-astronomy. That in celestial phenomena, as well as in all other fields of research, the irregular or the unformulable, or the uncapturable is present in at least equal representation with the uniform. That given any clear, definite, seemingly unvarying thing in the heavens, coexistently is something of wantonness or irresponsibility, bizarre and incredible, according to the standards of purists. That the science of astronomy concerns itself with only one aspect of existence because, of course, there can be no science of the adverse phenomena, which is good excuse for so enormously disregarding, if we must have the idea that there are real sciences, but which shows the hopelessness of positively attempting. I do want to stop there for a second because I do feel like that's that is showing sort of how, I guess you could say, how almost everything works. There are the things that we have kind of figured out, or think we figured out, and there are the things we haven't. And I mean, obviously things can change, and we can make mistakes about things we figured out and discover that later on and find out we were wrong. And those things are even more mysterious than we thought they were. But either way, there are things that seem to happen on regular patterns and at regular intervals, and there are things that just seem to happen at random. You can take that, I mean, all the way from the smallest to the largest scale, however you want to look at that. And that's why the show exists, is to look at these things that have not been figured out. Going back to the book here, the story of the comets, as not told in Mr. Chambers' book of that title, I guess I mean comets, is almost unparalleled in the annals of humiliation. When a comet is predicted to return, that means faith in the law of gravitation. It is Newtonism that comets, as well as planets, obey the law of gravitation and move in one of the conic sections. When a comet does not return when it should, there is no refuge for an astronomer to say that planets perturbed it, because one will ask why he did not include such factors in his calculations if these phenomena be subject to mathematical treatment. In his book, Mr. Chambers avoids, or indicates that he never heard of, a great deal that will receive cordiality from us. But he does publish a list of predicted comets that did not return. Writing in 1909, he mentions others for which he had hopes. Brooks' first periodic comet, 1886 IV, in quotation marks, we must see what the years 1909 and 1910 bring forth, in quotation marks. This is pretty indefinite anticipation. However, nothing was brought forth, according to Monthly Notes, Royal Astronomical Society, 1909 and 1910. The Brooks comet that is recorded is Brooks 1889. Giacobi's second periodic comet, 1903. That's Roman numerals. Not seen in 1907. Quotation marks. So we shall not have a chance of knowing more about it until 1914. Close quotation marks. No more known about it in 1914. Borelli's, let's see, is that right? Borelli's comet, 1905, 2. In quotation marks, its expected return in 1911 or 1912 will be awaited with interest, close quotation marks. This is pretty indefinite awaiting. It is now said that this comet did return upon September 19th, 1911. Deming's second periodic comet, 1894, 1. Expected in 1909, but not seen up to Mr. Chambers' time of writing. No mention in monthly notices. Swift's comet of November 20th, 1894, quotation marks, must be regarded as lost. unless it should be found in December 1912, close quotation marks. No mention of it in monthly notices. 3 comets were predicted to return in 1913. Not one of them returned. Monthly notices 74-326. Once upon a time, armed with some of the best and latest cynicisms, I was hunting for prey in the magazine of science and came upon an account of a comet that was expected in the year 1848. I suppose that the thing had been positively predicted and very likely failed to appear, and for such common game had no interest. But I came upon the spore of disgrace in the word triumph, quotation marks. If it does come, it will afford another astronomical triumph, close quotation marks. Magazine of Science, 1848-107. The astronomers had predicted the return of a great comet in the year 1848. In monthly notices, April 1847, Mr. Hines says that the results of his calculations had satisfied him, that the identification had been complete, and that, in all probability, in quotation marks, the comet must be very near, close quotation marks. Accepting Professor Madler's determinations, he predicted that the comet would return to position nearest the sun about the end of February 1848. No comet. Let's see how long this next one is. Okay, so this next paragraph is a page long. So we're going to stop there for now. So I'm starting to see what Ford is talking about here with all this sort of, you could almost call it, history of astronomy. These objects that were thought to, expected to come and they didn't come. I wonder now, since then, has there been more figured out about why these things don't come when they're expected? I have no idea because I'm not a scientist of any kind or astronomer. But yeah, so I'm not sure what to make of all that. Again, it could be, as I always say at the beginning of the show, these were mysterious things at the time that are not so mysterious anymore. So we'll get through this. I'm sure he won't spend the whole book on this, and get to some other anomalies and things. It is fascinating, and even if it's just from a sort of historical point of view here, or overview here. And yeah, we'll see what happens going forward. Again, please check out all the links in the episode description and help friends of the show. Also, if you do enjoy this show and you want to support it, there's ways to do that through Patreon, through just a PayPal donation, all these things. And yeah, also please check out friends of the show. For those that don't know, I do sit in a lot with over on Trouble Minds Radio, and also on Sundays on Anything Is Possible, the podcast and stream. So, but thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.